In 2020, the Federal Reserve created more dollars in 12 months than existed in all of prior American history combined. Trillions entered the system. Yet, when you checked your bank account, nothing changed. Your rent still increased, your grocery bill still climbed, your savings still earned nearly zero interest. Meanwhile, the stock market hit record highs. Real estate prices surged 30%. Billionaires added hundreds of billions to their net worth during a global pandemic and economic shutdown. Most people assumed this was corruption, or greed, or some vague conspiracy of the wealthy protecting their own. They were wrong. This was not corruption. This was physics. The money behaved according to laws first documented in the 1500s and refined in the 1700s. Laws your economics professors never mentioned. Laws your government officials understand but never explain publicly. Laws written by a Polish astronomer and an Irish-French banker, both dead for centuries, both more relevant to your financial reality than any Federal Reserve chairman alive today. You believe central banks control money. The documented history reveals the opposite. Money follows patterns these men identified 500 years ago. Central banks either work within those patterns or watch their policies backfire in predictable ways. This distinction matters. Understanding money as a controllable tool leads to confusion about modern wealth inequality. Understanding money as a force with consistent laws leads to clarity about why new money flows upward, why savers lose purchasing power, and why the gap between asset owners and wage earners grows wider with every round of money creation. The system is not broken. The system follows rules. Those rules favor specific positions in the financial structure. If you occupy the wrong position, you lose. If you occupy the right position, you gain. The position matters more than the effort. The position matters more than the talent. The position matters more than anything taught in conventional financial education. This is the infrastructure of modern wealth extraction. Not conspiracy. Infrastructure. Documented, repeatable, predictable. Welcome to Noob Historian. Behind every headline in your history book, there's a ledger they kept hidden. We open it. The story begins with an astronomer who should have been looking at planets, but instead found himself staring at coins. His discovery would explain why your dollar buys less every year while the wealth of the top 1% grows every quarter. And no one in your high school history class ever mentioned his name in connection with money. His name was Nicholas Copernicus. You know him for placing the sun at the center of the solar system. You should know him for something else entirely. In 1517, Copernicus was not yet famous. He served as a cathedral canon in Frombork, a small town in what is now northern Poland, but was then part of the Prussian territories. His astronomical work remained unpublished. His daily duties involved administration, medicine, and a problem the Prussian authorities desperately needed solved. The currency was collapsing. 3 different minting authorities operated in the region. The Teutonic Knights, the Polish crown, and various Prussian cities all produced coins. Each authority faced the same temptation: reduce the silver content of new coins while maintaining the same face value. Pocket the difference. Use the profits for war, construction, or simple corruption. The result was chaos. Coins of identical face value contained wildly different amounts of silver. Merchants hoarded the heavier coins and spent the lighter ones. Foreign traders refused to accept Prussian currency at face value. Commerce slowed. Prices fluctuated unpredictably. The economy suffered without any external shock or natural disaster. The Prussian Diet commissioned Copernicus to study the problem and propose solutions. In 1526, he delivered his treatise. The Latin title was Monetae Cudende Ratio, translated as On the Minting of Coin. This document, preserved today at the Czartoryski Library in Krakow under manuscript number 1310, contains the first rigorous articulation of a principle most people attribute to an Englishman born decades later. Copernicus wrote with mathematical precision. When 2 currencies circulate at equal legal value but contain different quantities of precious metal, the currency with greater intrinsic value will disappear from circulation. People will hoard it, melt it, or export it. The inferior currency will dominate daily transactions. Bad money drives out good money. This phrase never appears in Copernicus's text. He expressed the same concept in denser language, describing how debased coins expelled full-weight coins from commerce as surely as a physical law expelled lighter objects upward in water. The insight was counterintuitive. Common sense suggested the opposite outcome. People should prefer good money and reject bad money. Merchants should refuse debased coins. The market should discipline the counterfeiters and debasers. Copernicus understood why this common sense failed. The legal system required acceptance of coins at face value. A debased coin worth 3 grams of silver and a full-weight coin worth 5 grams of silver both purchased the same loaf of bread, if both bore the same royal stamp. The rational response was obvious. Spend the debased coin, keep the valuable coin. The legal fiction created the behavioral reality. This was not a theory. This was an observation of documented Prussian commerce, recorded in official complaints, merchant correspondence, and government deliberations. Copernicus did not invent the phenomenon. He explained it. His explanation reached the Prussian Diet in 1526. The authorities debated his recommendations. Political interests overruled his suggestions for unified coinage standards. The minting authorities continued their debasement. The economic problems persisted. Copernicus returned to astronomy. His monetary treatise gathered dust. Within 2 decades, an Englishman would face the same problem on a larger scale and receive credit for the identical observation. The astronomer who decentered the Earth from the cosmos also decentered human intention from monetary behavior. The money followed laws. The laws operated regardless of the plans, hopes, or moral character of the people using the money. This was Copernicus's second revolution. The first changed how humans understood their physical position in the universe. The second, largely forgotten, changed how we should understand our position in the monetary system. 32 years after Copernicus delivered his treatise to the Prussian Diet, an English merchant named Thomas Gresham faced a nearly identical crisis. Queen Elizabeth I had inherited a disaster. Her father, Henry VIII, had systematically debased English coinage to fund his military campaigns and lavish court. Her brother, Edward VI, had continued the debasement. By the time Elizabeth took the throne in 1558, English coins contained so little silver compared to their face value that foreign merchants laughed at them. English trade suffered. Continental partners demanded payment in gold or foreign coin. English merchants faced effective exchange rate penalties on every transaction. The kingdom's commercial reputation had collapsed alongside its currency. Elizabeth needed to understand the problem before she could solve it. She turned to Thomas Gresham. Gresham was not an academic. He was a merchant, a royal agent who had spent years on the continent handling English financial affairs in Antwerp, then the center of European banking. He understood money not through theory, but through the daily friction of exchange, lending, and payment. In 1558, Gresham wrote a memorandum to the Queen. This document survives in the National Archives of the United Kingdom under reference SP 12-1, folio 138. In this letter, Gresham explained exactly the phenomenon Copernicus had described 3 decades earlier. Gresham told Elizabeth her debased coins were driving full-weight foreign coins out of English commerce. When English coins circulated alongside better continental coins, the good coins disappeared. People melted them, hoarded them, or exported them to markets where their metal content would be properly valued. Only the debased English coins remained in domestic circulation. The process was automatic, no conspiracy required, no conscious coordination among merchants. Each individual actor, pursuing their own rational interest, produced the collective outcome. Gresham recommended a complete recoinage. Elizabeth should recall the debased coins, melt them, and issue new coins with proper silver content. The short-term cost would be enormous. The long-term benefit would restore English commercial credibility and reverse the drain of good money from the kingdom. Elizabeth followed his advice. The Great Recoinage of 1560 withdrew the debased coins and issued new currency with restored silver content. English trade recovered. The Crown's financial position stabilized. Gresham never claimed originality for his observation. He never read Copernicus's treatise. He arrived at the same conclusion through independent observation of the same phenomenon. 2 men, separated by geography and profession, documented identical monetary behavior. 3 centuries later, Scottish economist Henry Dunning MacLeod would attach Gresham's name to the principle. In his 1858 book, Elements of Political Economy, MacLeod coined the phrase Gresham's Law to describe how bad money drives out good money. The name stuck. Copernicus's priority was forgotten. Today, economics textbooks teach Gresham's Law without mentioning the astronomer who documented it first. The attribution matters less than the substance. Both men identified something fundamental about monetary behavior. Money was not neutral. Money was not passive. Money responded to incentive structures in predictable ways. Change the incentives, and you change the monetary flow. The change happened automatically, without central direction, without conspiracy, without even conscious awareness among the participants. This was the first forgotten law of money. It explained why debasement destroyed currencies. It explained why legal tender laws produced perverse outcomes. It explained why monetary systems behaved in ways that confounded the authorities, who thought they controlled those systems. But Gresham's Law was incomplete. It described which money circulated and which money disappeared. It did not describe something equally important. It did not describe who benefited and who suffered when new money entered an economy. For that answer, history would wait another 2 centuries. And the man who provided it would do something remarkable. He would not merely observe the law, he would exploit it to become extraordinarily wealthy, while his contemporaries lost everything. Richard Cantillon was born in Ireland around 1680. He died in London in 1734, murdered by a disgruntled servant who burned down his house to cover the crime. Between those dates, Cantillon accomplished something rare. He both theorized about money and proved his theory correct through personal profit. Cantillon worked in Paris during one of history's greatest monetary experiments. John Law, a Scottish gambler and financial theorist, had convinced the French regent to allow him to establish a bank and issue paper money. Law's system promised to replace gold and silver with paper, backed by future revenues from French colonial territories, particularly Louisiana. The Mississippi Company, as the venture became known, sparked a speculative mania. Shares in the company rose from 500 livres to nearly 18,000 livres in the space of 2 years. Paper money circulated freely. Credit expanded enormously. Prices rose. Fortunes appeared overnight. Cantillon observed something his contemporaries missed. The new money was not spreading evenly through the French economy. Law's bank created money and lent it to speculators who bought Mississippi Company shares. These speculators spent their paper profits in Paris, bidding up prices for luxury goods, real estate, and services. The servants, laborers, and provincial merchants received the new money last, after prices had already adjusted upward. By the time the money reached them, it purchased far less than it had purchased for those who received it first. The first receivers of new money benefited, the last receivers suffered. The mechanism was simple. New money increased purchasing power for its initial holders. As those holders spent it, they bid up prices. Each subsequent holder received money worth less than it was worth to the previous holder. The final holders, usually workers and savers far from the financial centers, experienced only the price increases without any of the wealth gains. Cantillon recognized the pattern. More importantly, he traded on it. While Law's system expanded, Cantillon made loans to speculators at high interest rates. He accepted Mississippi Company shares as collateral. When the bubble reached its peak in 1720, Cantillon sold. He converted his paper profits into hard assets and gold. He transferred his wealth outside France. When Law's system collapsed, wiping out thousands of investors and destroying the French paper money experiment, Cantillon emerged wealthier than before. His theoretical understanding had produced practical advantage. Between 1730 and 1734, Cantillon wrote his observations into a treatise. The title was Essai sur la nature du commerce en général, or Essay on the Nature of Trade in General. The manuscript circulated privately during his lifetime, but was not published until 1755, 2 decades after his death. The original French text survives at the Bibliothèque nationale de France. In chapter 6 of part 2, Cantillon articulated what modern economists call the Cantillon effect. His original words in translation state it clearly. When the increase in money comes from gold and silver mines within the state, the owners of those mines, the entrepreneurs, the smelters, the refiners, and all those who work there will increase their spending in proportion to their gains. The principle extended beyond mining. Any source of new money created the same distributional effect. The money enriched those closest to its source first. It impoverished those furthest from its source through price increases without corresponding income gains. Cantillon went further. He explained how this distribution was not random, but structural. The financial infrastructure of a society determined who received new money first. Bankers, large merchants, government contractors, and those with direct access to credit facilities occupied favorable positions. Wage workers, small savers, and those paid in fixed incomes occupied unfavorable positions. The infrastructure determined the outcome. Change the infrastructure, and you changed who gained and who lost from monetary expansion. Leave the infrastructure unchanged, and every expansion of the money supply transferred wealth in the same direction. This was not conspiracy. This was plumbing. The money flowed through channels. Those who controlled the channels received the water first. Those downstream received whatever remained after the flow had already altered the landscape. Cantillon died before he could witness the full validation of his theory. But the theory would prove its accuracy in crisis after crisis, century after century, right up to the present moment. History provided repeated experiments in monetary behavior. Each experiment confirmed the laws Copernicus, Gresham, and Cantillon had documented. 3 episodes stand out for their clarity and their documentation. The American Civil War presented the first test. In 1862, the Union faced a financing crisis. The war consumed resources faster than taxation could supply them. The Treasury issued a new form of currency, paper notes backed not by gold but by government promise. These greenbacks bore the legal tender status necessary to force their acceptance. Gresham's law activated immediately. Gold coins disappeared from circulation within weeks of the greenback issuance. The National Archives contain merchant correspondence from 1862 and 1863 documenting the phenomenon. Gold traded at a premium to greenbacks in private markets. Official exchange required parity. The rational response was universal. Spend greenbacks, hoard gold. The government had created a 2-tier monetary system while insisting it had created a single currency. By 1864, greenbacks traded at roughly 35 cents to the gold dollar in unofficial markets. Anyone with gold held it. Anyone without gold paid higher prices as the greenback supply expanded. Cantillon's effect operated alongside Gresham's law. Government contractors who received greenbacks first spent them at pre-inflation prices. Soldiers paid in greenbacks months later discovered their wages purchased progressively less. The documented evidence shows the laws operating exactly as predicted. The second test came with German hyperinflation after World War I. Germany financed its war effort primarily through borrowing rather than taxation. After defeat, the Weimar Republic inherited enormous debts and reparation obligations. The government printed marks to meet its obligations. Both laws operated at extreme velocity. Gresham's law eliminated hard currency from German circulation. Gold coins vanished by 1920. Foreign currency commanded enormous premiums. Anyone holding assets convertible to hard money converted them and removed the proceeds from the German monetary system. Only paper marks remained for domestic transactions. The Cantillon effect redistributed wealth with unprecedented ferocity. Those closest to the money creation, primarily industrial debtors who had borrowed in old marks and repaid in worthless new marks, experienced windfall gains. Hugo Stinnes, the industrialist, built an empire by borrowing heavily, purchasing real assets, and repaying loans with depreciated currency. Those furthest from money creation experienced devastation. Civil servants on fixed salaries, pensioners, savers. The German middle class, historically the holders of bonds and savings accounts, found their lifetime accumulations reduced to nothing. Documented accounts describe retirees burning bundles of marks for heat because the paper had more value as fuel than as money. The hyperinflation transferred wealth from savers to debtors, from the fixed-income middle class to the asset-holding industrialists, exactly as Cantillon's law predicted. The mechanism was not politics. The mechanism was monetary physics. The third test arrived with the collapse of Bretton Woods in 1971. After World War II, the United States had established a system where the dollar was convertible to gold at 35 per ounce, and other currencies were pegged to the dollar. This system required the United States to limit dollar creation to maintain gold backing. By the late 1960s, the United States had created more dollars than its gold reserves could support. Foreign governments recognized the disparity. France, under de Gaulle, began demanding gold for its dollar holdings in 1965. Other nations followed. Gresham's law operated at the international level. The dollar was the debased currency. Gold was the good money. Foreign holders exchanged dollars for gold, draining American reserves. The Treasury's gold holdings fell from over 20,000 tons in 1950 to barely 8,000 tons by 1971. On August 15, 1971, President Nixon suspended gold convertibility. The United States would no longer exchange dollars for gold at any price. The Bretton Woods system ended. The aftermath confirmed Cantillon's effect on a global scale. The new monetary system allowed unlimited dollar creation. Those with direct access to newly created dollars, primarily American financial institutions and the government itself, benefited from spending power before prices adjusted. Foreign holders of dollars experienced steady erosion of purchasing power as the currency depreciated without gold backing. The documented price data shows gold rising from 35 per ounce in 1971 to 850 per ounce in 1980. Those who held gold gained, those who held dollars lost. The distribution followed the Cantillon pattern precisely. 3 crises across 3 centuries. Each confirmed the same laws. Each showed money behaving according to principles identified in the 1500s and 1700s. Each transferred wealth according to structural position rather than effort or merit. In 2008, the United States financial system approached collapse. Major banks faced insolvency. Credit markets froze. The economy contracted at the fastest pace since the Great Depression. The Federal Reserve responded with unprecedented monetary intervention. Between September 2008 and January 2009, the Federal Reserve expanded its balance sheet from approximately $900 billion to over $2.2 trillion. This was money creation on a scale never before attempted. The central bank purchased troubled assets from banks, extended emergency loans, and backstopped failing institutions. The immediate crisis passed, but the money creation continued. Quantitative easing, as the policy became known, expanded in 3 major phases: QE1 from 2008 to 2010, QE2 from 2010 to 2011, QE3 from 2012 to 2014. By the end of the third program, the Federal Reserve balance sheet exceeded $4.5 trillion. The central bank had created roughly $3.6 trillion in new money over 6 years. Then came 2020. The pandemic triggered another crisis. The Federal Reserve responded with even larger intervention. Between February 2020 and April 2022, the balance sheet expanded from $4.2 trillion to $8.9 trillion. The Federal Reserve created nearly $5 trillion in new money in approximately 2 years. The weekly H41 statistical releases from the Federal Reserve document every dollar of this expansion. These are public records, published every Thursday, available on the Federal Reserve website. The money creation is not disputed. The mechanism is not hidden. The question is not whether the money was created. The question is where it went. Cantillon's law predicted the answer 3 centuries in advance. The Federal Reserve does not distribute money directly to citizens. It creates money by purchasing assets, primarily treasury bonds and mortgage-backed securities. The sellers of these assets are the primary dealers. 24 major financial institutions authorized to trade directly with the Federal Reserve. The New York Fed publishes the list of primary dealers on its website. These include Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan Chase, Bank of America, and similar institutions. They receive the new money first. The primary dealers use the new money to purchase additional assets, stocks, bonds, real estate. The purchases drive up asset prices. Shareholders of those assets grow wealthier. The wealth effect operates in reverse. Those who own assets before the money creation benefit, those who do not own assets experience only the price increases without the wealth gains. The Federal Reserve Survey of Consumer Finances documents the outcome. This triennial survey, conducted since 1989, tracks wealth distribution across American households. The data through 2022 shows Cantillon's effect with textbook precision. In 2007, before the financial crisis, the top 1% of Americans held 23.4% of total household wealth. By 2022, after 3 rounds of quantitative easing and pandemic money creation, the top 1% held 32.3%. The top 10% of Americans held approximately 70% of all corporate stock. When the Federal Reserve purchased assets and drove up stock prices, the top 10% captured 70% of the benefit. Meanwhile, median wages increased 37% nominally between 2008 and 2023, according to Bureau of Labor Statistics data. Housing prices increased over 100% in the same period. Stock prices increased over 300%. Those who owned houses and stocks before 2008 experienced wealth growth. Those who did not own assets and relied on wages fell further behind. The mechanism was precisely the one Cantillon described. The money entered through a specific channel. Those positioned at the mouth of that channel benefited first. Those positioned downstream received only the residual effects of prices already adjusted upward. This was not corruption. No laws were broken. No secret meetings determined who would benefit. The infrastructure produced the outcome automatically. The Federal Reserve purchased assets from primary dealers. Primary dealers purchased assets from asset holders. Asset holders bid up prices. Prices rose before wages adjusted. Wealth transferred from wage earners to asset owners without any individual decision to make that transfer. The forgotten law of money operated exactly as Cantillon predicted it would operate. The implications of Cantillon's law extend beyond academic debate. Every monetary expansion in history has followed the same pattern. New money enters through specific channels. Those channels favor specific positions in the economic structure. The positions determine the beneficiaries. Individual effort, talent, or virtue plays no role in the distributional outcome. This contradicts the standard narrative of market economies. The standard narrative holds that rewards flow to productivity. Work harder and earn more. Provide more value and receive more compensation. The market allocates resources efficiently and fairly. Cantillon's law reveals the hidden layer beneath this narrative. Before the market allocates anything, the monetary system is already allocated. Where new money enters determines who benefits from its arrival. The subsequent market activity occurs on a playing field already tilted by monetary distribution. Consider 2 identical workers in 2010. Both earn $50,000 per year. Both save diligently. One worker invests savings in stocks and real estate. The other worker keeps savings in a bank account, waiting for prices to stabilize before purchasing a home. By 2023, the worker who purchased assets in 2010 has experienced 200 to 300% appreciation on those assets. The worker who held cash has experienced approximately 30% cumulative inflation, meaning their savings purchased less than before. Both workers exhibited identical behavior. Same income, same savings rate, same discipline. The outcome difference is entirely a function of position relative to the monetary channel. The worker who bought assets positioned themselves to receive the benefits of monetary expansion. The worker who held cash positioned themselves to bear the costs. The market did not reward the first worker for superior productivity. The monetary system rewarded the first worker for occupying a favorable position when new money arrived. This dynamic explains phenomena that otherwise appear mysterious. Why do financial sector wages grow faster than other sectors? Because financial institutions occupy positions closest to monetary channels. Why do real estate prices outpace income growth decade after decade? Because real estate serves as a repository for newly created money-seeking returns. Why does wealth concentrate even when economic growth is distributed? Because the Cantillon effect concentrates the benefits of monetary expansion at specific nodes in the financial infrastructure. The laws are not value judgments, they describe mechanisms. Knowing these mechanisms changes nothing about the mechanisms themselves, but knowing these mechanisms changes everything about how you understand your own position within the monetary system. Copernicus identified something fundamental about physical reality. The Earth was not the center of the cosmos. The cosmos did not revolve around human perspective. Physical laws operated regardless of human preference or perception. Copernicus also identified something fundamental about monetary reality. His insight about debased currency driving out good currency describe behavior independent of human intention. People did not consciously decide to hoard good coins and spend bad coins in coordination. The behavior emerged from incentive structures operating below conscious deliberation. Cantillon extended this insight. The distribution of new money through an economy was not a matter of choice or policy, but of position within existing channels. Central banks did not decide to enrich asset holders at the expense of wage earners. The infrastructure produced that outcome automatically. Both men describe what we might call the gravity of money. Gravity operates without intention. Gravity operates without moral consideration. Gravity pulls everything toward mass. Money operates the same way. It flows through channels. It accumulates at nodes. It enriches positions, regardless of the virtue or effort of those occupying those positions. Fighting these laws produces the same result as fighting physical gravity. Failure, frustration, exhausted resources. Understanding these laws produces different options. You do not fight gravity. You account for gravity. You build structures that work within gravitational constraints. You position yourself relative to gravitational forces. The same applies to monetary forces. Understanding Gresham's law changes how you think about saving. When currencies compete and one is debased, holding the good money and spending the bad money is not greed. It is rational response to incentive structure. Understanding Cantillon's effect changes how you think about wealth building. Positioning yourself near monetary channels is not luck. It is strategic response to how money distributes through economies. This is not investment advice. This is historical education about patterns documented over 5 centuries. The patterns continued through every monetary system, every currency, every era of money creation. They continue today. The Federal Reserve creates money. That money enters through primary dealers. Those dealers purchase assets. Asset prices rise. Asset owners grow wealthier. This process operates continuously, documented in weekly statistical releases, visible to anyone who examines the data. The original 2020 paradox now resolves. Trillions in new money did not appear in your bank account, because the money did not enter through a channel connected to your bank account. The money entered through financial institution balance sheets, flowed into asset markets, and increased the wealth of those positioned to receive it. Copernicus would have recognized the dynamic. He described exactly this pattern in 1526 regarding Prussian coins. Cantillon would have recognized it. He exploited exactly this pattern in 1720 regarding French paper money. Both men understood money as a force with consistent behavior. The laws remain forgotten because they produce uncomfortable conclusions. If monetary policy automatically redistributes wealth toward asset owners, then monetary expansion is never neutral. If position matters more than effort in capturing monetary benefits, then standard narratives about meritocracy require qualification. If these laws operated for 5 centuries and continue operating today, then modern economic management is constrained by forces older than modern economics itself. The laws continue operating whether or not anyone acknowledges them. Copernicus wrote in his monetary treatise that money is the measure by which all things are valued. He understood that the measure itself was not neutral. A corrupted measure corrupted all valuations built upon it. Cantillon wrote that the proximity to the source of money determines who benefits from its increase. He understood that position in the monetary infrastructure mattered more than any individual characteristic. Both observations remain true. Both observations explain outcomes that otherwise appear as conspiracy or corruption, but are in fact mechanical. Both observations point toward the same conclusion. The money has laws. The laws favor certain positions. Occupying those positions requires understanding where the money enters and how it flows. Your history books taught you about kings and generals, wars and treaties, empires and revolutions. They rarely taught you about the money behind those events. They never taught you about the laws governing that money. Now you know the laws. What you do with this knowledge is not a historical question. That is a question for the present. But we will continue examining history, because every crisis reveals the same patterns. Every monetary experiment confirms the same laws. And every generation forgets and relearns what Copernicus and Cantillon documented centuries ago. In the next video, we will examine what happens when a nation tries to escape these laws entirely. One country attempted to build a monetary system immune to Gresham and Cantillon. The experiment lasted decades. The ending was predictable. Subscribe so you do not miss it.